Within the ancient ivory towers of the Grand Scholarium of the Kingdom of Nuzantralithia, where thought once wandered unshackled and minds bloomed in the chaos of questioning, a curious tranquility had begun to take root. This newfound serenity, it was said, was not the result of enlightenment or academic rigor, but rather the careful cultivation of obedience, fertilized by the arrival of armored pedagogy. The Royal Scroll of Scholarly Discipline, an addendum to the fabled Enchanted Scroll of Martial Benevolence, had declared that institutions of learning must henceforth be protected, or more accurately, perfected, through the strategic integration of knightly wisdom. For who better to instruct the fledgling intellect, proclaimed the herald of harmonious indoctrination, than those schooled in the art of unquestioning command? Thus it was that the knight scholars arrived, resplendent in ceremonial regalia and bearing degrees in operative obedience, awarded by the newly formed University of Unified Doctrine. They came not to teach literature or logic, but to ensure that no idea, no matter how academically seductive, would dare challenge the fortified virtues of stability and loyalty. Philosophy departments were restructured to emphasize the supremacy of order over thought, and political science was rebranded as patriotic strategy and civil synchronization. The once fiery halls of debate now echoed with silence, so orderly it might have been mistaken for wisdom, had one not already forgotten the taste of dissent. Professors who had once lectured on civil liberties and the poetic beauty of pluralism were gently ushered into early sabbaticals, replaced by captains fluent in bullet-point pedagogy. Critical thinking was classified as a potential subversive activity, and the once sacred art of inquiry was reduced to a multiple-choice exercise, graded, of course, by officers trained in both surveillance and syllabi. "This is not interference," explained the Grand Chancellor of Martial Enlightenment with a smile forged from decades of curated data, but a noble alignment of discipline and knowledge for national synergy. And the students, now adorned in uniforms indistinguishable from their guardians, clapped with the choreographed passion of those who had never known chaos. Assemblies once brimming with intellectual ferment now opened with morning drills and loyalty oaths, where every raised question was matched with a raised eyebrow from a silent observer in camouflaged contemplation. Academic journals began publishing research titles such as The Tactical Value of Silence in Developing Nations and Epistemological Uniformity as a Mechanism for Progress. Unsurprisingly, all peer reviews were conducted by committees of colonels whose understanding of peerage came from hierarchical chains rather than collaborative critique. The curriculum, once alive with contradictions and complexity, now marched in straight lines. The magical illusion, of course, was maintained with masterful subtlety. After all, the knights were not officially intervening, but merely participating, monitoring, and enhancing the security culture of campuses. This elegant terminology allowed the Ministry of Educational Stability to assure parents that their children were being shielded from radicalism. Radicalism, in this context, defined loosely as thinking too much, too freely, too loudly. Those who resisted were gently escorted into dialogue sessions, which, despite their name, involved more monologue than mutuality. The enchanted haze of noble intention lingered thick in the air, stifling even the impulse to notice its absurdity. Some whispered of a time, not long forgotten, when students were considered heirs of thought, not foot soldiers of protocol. They spoke in coded stanzas of books once banned, debates once held, and courage once unmeasured by compliance. But these were tales recited only in underground poetry clubs, attended by candlelight and guarded by irony. For in the kingdom of Nuzantralithia, where the sword had replaced the stylus as the guiding tool of education, even memory required a permit. And so, beneath banners proclaiming unity through uniformity and wisdom through watchfulness, the academies of the realm transformed into fortresses of quiet conformity. The pursuit of knowledge was no longer a journey into the unknown, but a well-lit parade along predetermined routes. The scrolls were signed, the minds were calmed, and the knights, ever vigilant, stood watch over what remained of curiosity. And in that grand kingdom, where fear was masked as order and intellect was sheathed in brass, the dream of a free university lived on only in footnotes too dangerous to cite.